right. Jonathan, thanks so much for being on Remote Talks today. Maybe to get started, it would be great if you could introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And what does the company you work for do?
Absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you for having me. Really appreciate you taking the time to meet. So I'm Jonathan. I've recently joined Hopin as their head of remote. I joined just over 2 months ago. I'm from Dublin, Ireland, and you were asking what did Hopin do? Is that right?
Yeah.
So Hopin is an online events platform where you can create engaging virtual events that connect people all across the world. So very similar to what we're trying to do as remote workers and then dealing with remote work globally. So we're just over a year old, and how the company came about was actually that our founder, Johnny, he battled with some illnesses in the past and he was forced into isolation himself. So he had to figure out a way of connecting with people as he couldn't attend events in real life. So he's basically come up with Hopin, a platform that helps people get together, connect, and mirrors the experiences of an in-person event, but virtually. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring people close from afar, make people have great experiences regardless of where they are in the world. And just as I said, bring people together.
And so, as far as I understand, Hopin is one of the fastest growing companies of all time. You say it's like just over a year old. I think at beginning 2020, the company had 6 employees. How many employees does Hopin have today?
So as of today, we're 451. When I joined 2 months ago, we were 350. So yeah, the growth is fast. It's scaling really quickly, and we're going to continue growing at a crazy rate over the next year. So exciting times ahead, but a lot to do.
And has Hopin always been a remote organization?
Yes, yeah.
Always,
So
as in the last year.
always been remote. Yeah, I don't think we have much choice, but no, we're very excited to be remote, and I think it kind of mirrors what we're trying to solve for us in our product. So we're living that same reality. So very happy to be remote, and as you know, lots of pros come with being remote. So yeah, we're celebrating those.
And so, how did your role come to be? Like, why does a company like Hopin need a head of remote? And what do you, given that you're 2 months into the job, I suppose you're still very early in your plans there.
Yeah, well, I've had to hit the ground running, but that's good. Life at Hopin is very fast paced. But I think Hopin's approach is actually quite special. I think our leadership are really invested in making sure that we're supporting our employees. We're bringing in people crazy fast. We want to make sure they're supported, that we're working, we're organized internally, that we're being thoughtful about time zones and all of those things that make remote work. So my role is actually part of a greater team. So we're known as the Vibe team, and we report into our chief of staff. So we're quite close to that exec level, which is amazing. And the team comprises 3 kind of main tiers. So we have internal comms, we have events, and we have remote operations. And we all work in tandem together, all with the goal of creating an incredible culture, something that will scale, and just really supporting our employees. So I think it's actually quite unique, the approach we've taken, because in the past I've worked in similar kind of roles and with similar people, but we've always been across different teams, and we're sitting in different team meetings and we're not always on the same page. So I really enjoyed the setup that we have at Hopin as part of the Vibe team. And yeah, our goal is just to create good vibes. It's as simple as that.
And so you mentioned you've hit the ground running. What are some of the things that you've been working on since you joined Hopin?
Yeah, so literally in my first week, I had just joined, and we were 2 weeks away from having our first ever company-wide offsite. So it's essentially like a quarterly business review / a quarterly kickoff that we were putting into one and using it as a chance to unite everybody. So I started January 25th, and the event was on February 11th and 12th. So I kind of had to get it across the line and get everything in motion and get things together. But it was amazing. It was such a great event. It was my first time to plan an event like this on Hopin. And we celebrated our previous wins. We looked ahead to the future. We heard from customers. We ran our first ever peer nominated awards, which was lovely to give people recognition and celebrate, our great employees. And it was a great event overall. We brought some fun. We got creative. And yeah, so that was the first thing that kind of landed on my lap when I joined. But events is actually going to be a huge part of my role long term. So thinking about since main stage, that's what we call it. It's our quarterly main stage. Since the first main stage, we've obviously put together now our plan for events for the rest of the year. So we have a weekly all hands. We do a monthly Connect Fest, which is a really nice one. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It's just an opportunity for people to connect. So it's 30 minutes. We do one in each region. And we play games. But Pictionary is always a favorite. Or this month we did some Kahoot. We did some trivia rounds. And it's just a bit of fun. And it's basically a chance for people to connect. Yeah. We do larger special events as well, like summer parties, end of year celebrations, and we'll also mark all of those important cultural moments. So yeah, events is something I've kind of hit the ground running with right from day one, but I'm very excited. It's something I've always been passionate about. And it's part of the reason I was excited to work at Hopin. So yeah, events is one that was one of the first priorities, but there've been a few, there've been many.
That's exciting. And I think the nice thing, of course, is you can use your own platform to run those events, which is quite unique.
Exactly. And we actually dog food. We do a lot of testing ourselves. So for example, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we tested everyone in the company joining the all hands on the mobile app. And then we were able to see what issues there were and try and fix them before they go to the public. And I think that's an exciting thing too, trialing out our new integrations and all of that fun stuff.
No, that's very exciting. Is that actually, I'm curious about this. Is this a large use case with your customers for like internal events other than, external events?
Yeah, and I think initially we had a lot of the requests were coming inbound. We weren't actually going looking for business because the volume was so high. And a lot of people were looking for these public facing events and these huge conferences and offsites and things like that. But I think the product works so well for all hands alone. Like I personally love joining all hands every week, and we do some simple things that just make it work and bring people together. So yeah, I think in the long run, I think we'll see a lot of companies adopting Hopin for some of those smaller things, just those weekly get-togethers.
And then, let's talk a little bit about like online events, especially given you already spent quite some time in your 2 months tenure at Hopin related to this. I've attended a number of events in Hopin, and they were all great. Like I think the platform works really well. It does exactly what you expect it to do, and like it's hard to get confused, which I think is it seems like a low bar, but it's actually surprisingly hard to pull it off. What beyond like having an app that works well and a platform that works well, what makes a digital event a good event?
Yeah. So personally, I've always worked in events for the last number of years. So, my focus has always been in-person events. But yeah, shifting to the digital world, I think, having interactive elements is one of the most important things. And I think that that's something that the platform does really well. When you join an event in Hopin, you can see, if you're at the main stage, you can see your presenters, you can see any presentations or decks, but there's also the chat window positioned just to the right. And internally, for our internal events, the chat goes crazy throughout all of our meetings. People engage, people have jokes, people support each other. It's a really nice way to just interact. And even when we've done some public facing events, I've seen people jump into them and everyone says hello and where they're from, and it just gets people comfortable with interacting. So I think interactive elements are so important. Other things that can really help make the interaction work is taking part in polls that are relative to the content or relevant to the content. I think that's great. If there's Q&A features where people can be adding questions that can be asked live and potentially upvoting the ones that they like, anything like that just means that audience members aren't literally joining a virtual event and leaving it in the background while they work elsewhere. I think the important thing is to ensure there's some interaction to keep people engaged. Other things that I really believe in is varying the content. I think it can get quite monotonous if you're just hearing one person presenting after another, and it's a similar deck and a similar style of presentation. I think, if you can introduce panel discussions or live interviews or just mix it up, I think that's really great. And also try and keep the presentations short. That's something we're trying to do internally now as well. At all hands, we try to limit everyone to a 5-minute max for any presentation. So we're always trying to edit ourselves down, be more concise, get to the point quicker, which is difficult for me. I'm a total person. I'll go off on a million tangents. So I have to rein myself back. But yeah, I think that's something that's really important, varying up the content. And lastly, I would say fun. I think you have to have fun at events, get creative. and just bring some joy. Yeah, we rely on puns a lot, like dad jokes and terrible puns. So yeah, I always just think, a bit of shameless fun goes a long way.
Oh, that's awesome. Is there like a scale limit where you see like in either direction, like less than so many people, or more than a certain amount of people, it stops working, or you have to start thinking about a different way of organizing a virtual event, or I'm just curious to see how that varies.
Yeah, I think when you get to a certain, range of in your audience numbers, I think it's important to give people the opportunities to interact, like I said. So whether it's that they take part in some networking one-on-one, or whether you have breakout sessions where they can go into the sessions area, and I'm speaking from Hopin's point of view here, where you can go into sessions and then engage in kind of smaller groups. I think, yeah, if you have like 200,000 people on an event, the chat can be very hard to keep up with. So yeah, having opportunities to break down into smaller groups is definitely something I would recommend, just to bring those kind of nice breakout moments.
And so what do you think is going to happen next in the world of events? Because clearly there's not been any in-person events, but I think they're starting to come back. I've got my first invitation to one in October this year. What is going to happen next when we have both these two type of events next to each other?
Yeah, totally. It's exciting times that we're getting back into the real world for sure. But I do think that long term, there's definitely going to be, and excuse the buzzword, but I think the future of events is going to be hybrid. So we actually hosted a public facing event on Hopin about 2 or 3 weeks ago, called Hybrid Events Unlocked. And there was a really nice piece and a really nice narrative that kind of resonated with me. And they were saying that, smartphones once upon a time were called smartphones, but now everyone just refers to them as phones. Online shopping is no longer really online shopping. People just say shopping. And similar with hybrid events, one day we believe that they're just going to be called events. You won't need to call out that there's hybrid elements. They're going to be so common, especially in the world of like conferences, offsites, trade fairs, expos. Those types of events, I think there'll always be hybrid elements. Whereas we're not saying that, concerts are going to be replaced, or music festivals, where I don't think you can achieve that moment when the beat drops or when a crowd goes crazy virtually. We're not trying to get in on that territory. But yeah, definitely believe that there's a world hybrid will play a big role long term in conferences and the likes.
Is there any part that you feel like it's done better virtually rather than the other way around? Like, I think the other way around is easy to imagine, but like, is there something that's either easier to do virtually?
Yeah, so I've actually so many examples of these. Let me think of what. So I'll do two. So I think the first one is when I think of the stress of traveling to a city to attend a conference. You have to pack your bag, you have to book your flights, you have to stay in a hotel, all of that travel. If you have kids at home, you have to figure out childcare. All of that combined is a lot of stress. And now I think in the future, we're going to have the technology that can actually support people, having a choice when it comes to whether they want to travel or not, and they can still have an amazing experience attending an event from home. So I think that's an exciting thing. I'm not saying that I never want to travel again. I do, but having the choice would be great, because it's not always 100% necessary to be there in person. So that's something that excites me, and I think that's a positive. And another thing, we recently did our first ever peer nominated awards at Hopin. They're called the Hopin Hero Awards. And it was really fun that, like, whenever I've done these award shows before in person, I've always wanted to achieve the moment of like the Oscars, where you have all of the people with the cameras in front of them. And then as the winner's read out, you see the people applauding for the winner. But it's too costly to do that, to hire different cameramen if you're just running like a simple, company event. But when you're doing it virtually, it's simple. The people just come up on camera, and then we did a nice applause. And I think that was something that was really fun, to see everyone's faces, all of the shortlisted people, and then see everyone applauding each other. And I thought that was really, I think award ceremonies are somewhere where virtual just makes things a bit more celebratory and really, really nice.
Yeah, I love that idea. That's
Yeah.
really funny indeed. Yeah, that would be very hard to replicate in real life, where you have multiple camera crews that have to tune into the right people.
I've thought about doing it so many times, and just the effort. Yeah, it's a lot.
Are there any plans within the organization to have like a get together in the real world other than a virtual one?
Yeah, so I think it's something we're discussing. It comes up all the time, and we're very openly saying, yes, someday, hopefully, we can make it happen. But we haven't, agreed on what that looks like just yet, given COVID and everything else.
Yeah.
But what I would be excited to do is, our product is going into this hybrid world, and so are we as employees. Someday, maybe we'll be able to test our product and do a hybrid event ourselves. So it might not be that we all travel to the same country, but we might be able to get together in our own countries in groups and join using the same technology and have the same experience, and just see what that feels like. And that's something that I'm very excited about doing. I think that will be our first attempt, and then following that, maybe next year we might do something in person altogether.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, we at Remote, we're at the same stage where, we existed as a company before COVID and we did get-togethers, but we were 15 people and now we're 150. And by the time COVID is over, we'll be 300. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work. It's going to be very hard to plan for that.
It'll be expensive, but if
Yeah.
you weigh up, what you would be spending on office space, if you can try and make those trade-offs and make a good decision there. Hopefully something will work out for you guys.
There's been very few organizations that, one, are fully remote from the start, and two, scaled up really fast and getting to hundreds of employees.
Yeah.
And so I know this from experience because we had this at GitLab, and now we have the same kind of situation at Remote, but Hopin going so incredibly fast. What are challenges that you encountered that you didn't expect, or surprises in general about a company of that size being fully remote?
Yeah. So one thing that I've actually loved about we're scaling so quick, like you said, and there's so many people joining, but I think we've taken a really thoughtful approach to onboarding. And we actually use our product to run onboarding for the whole week. So there's loads of different sessions. They're in different places in the product. Everyone gets to mingle and work together. And it just works really well. So for a company that's only a year old, for the progress that we've made, I was really impressed, I have to say, joining. I was like, this is incredible that after a year, we have this really robust onboarding schedule, these incredible product trainings, these demos, these tests, such great coverage. But I will say there was one area in onboarding I didn't have a presence, and I wanted to get in there. So we now have a nice session on day one all around getting the most out of your remote life. So that was an area that I did want to insert myself into. So we're setting our employees up for success and making sure they're getting the most out of the remote working experience.
That's awesome. What is the next thing you're looking to address? Like, what is the next big thing you hope to improve?
Yeah, so there's obviously been quite a few, but one thing that we're really looking at, and we've been working on this over the last kind of month or two, is our ways of working and essentially like our operating principles. I know so many companies have gone public and shared theirs, which has been great, and we're hopefully going to do the same in the future. But we've recently launched ours internally, and we've put them under three main pillars. So we're looking at communication, the do's and don'ts, comms etiquette. We're looking at collaboration, diversifying our mediums. Working asynchronously, giving people time back, not defaulting to meetings all the time. And then when you have a meeting, running great meetings. And then the last part is health and well-being. So all around making remote work, creating your own routine that suits your needs. And just really using Google Calendar as your gatekeeper to ensure, that people know your working hours, that you're getting your personal time in. So we're really addressing, our Hopin ways of working. So we launched it about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we're going to run some fun little quirky ideas to try and get some adoption internally and just make sure that people are really engaging with it and reading it. But yeah, I think, that's something we've really wanted to address. And it's not necessarily that we have huge problems in the way we're working, but we definitely want to, be on top of it ahead of any problems arising. So yeah, that's definitely one that's on the cards.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we tend to recommend organizations once they start working remotely is to, have a handbook, write stuff down, like establish, exactly as you said, how do we communicate? How do we do basic things? But also, how do you, as you mentioned earlier, how do you make sure you have like a great balance, right, between your work, but also the rest of your life, because work is so close when you're working remotely.
Absolutely. And it's some of the simplest things. It's just like creating boundaries and rituals in your daily routine, or scheduling that time that gives you flexibility to go and exercise 2 or 3 days a week. And we just want people to feel empowered to own their routines and make those decisions for themselves. Because, when you're not in an office, you can't really force it upon people. People have to kind of take their own ownership and accountability. But that's the big thing that I want to achieve, is that people really feel empowered to create their own routine and get the most out of their experience.
For organizations listening to this, they're like, wow, we should also get a head of remote. What would your advice to them be? Like, what for one, what is the time to look for a role like that for a person like you, and what should they expect from that?
Yeah, so I think the role head of remote, I have to say, I spent the first 2 to 3 weeks, every single person I met, I had to explain what I'd be doing. It's not a very clear role, and I think it can differ from company to company. And I think that that's something that's special about it. So I think, you know, if you were thinking about how do we make sure we're getting the most out of our employees and ensuring we're supporting them long term, think about like where the role would sit, what team will it report into. Think about, you know, what level of seniority you'd want. Think about the background of the person that you'd want. Are they, you know, more people ops, or have they got like a office manager background, or a bit of both? So yeah, I think it's really around just finding someone with some real cross-functional experience that will be comfortable partnering with numerous different teams, getting involved in everything, and putting, you know, the employees at the heart of every decision that you make. So yeah, I think that the real special thing, though, as I mentioned, the unique thing is that you can tailor the role to suit your own company's needs. So for example, I manage our events as well, and the head of events reports into me, which is amazing because I feel that events play such a large role in building community and culture. And the fact that I'm coupled then with internal comms all under this one umbrella, we're able to do great things and really quickly because we have everyone on the same team singing off the same hymn sheet. So yeah, just think about, you know, what you want to get out of the role and what's the best way to structure the approach.
That's great. I think that's the good place to end, Jonathan. Thanks so much for being on Remote Talks.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is great. Really appreciate it.
All right, thanks.